little work to cut some numbers based on different things that the council might could choose from.
Mr. Smith, in response to your question last week, the mayor had a team consisting of Alan Rice, Melinda Lopez, Frank Lopez, and myself take a look at.
And that's something real quick. Dr. Lopez, YouTube has a timeout period. If not, you need to reboot so everybody can see this at home later.
It's still going.
All right. How long do we have?
I don't know, but I'll monitor it.
All right, Sean.
So, we took a look at questions you posed and came up with a list of things that we'd like to inform you about. Let me say that this is strictly informational only. This is not the mayor's plan. This is a response to a request for information, and we just want to put everything out there in front of you so you can almost think of it as a smorgasbord. There's a variety of things you can choose from, or choose nothing. That's entirely up to, that's a legislative decision. We're just trying to inform you of the options. First item on the list is property tax. And Dr. Murphy already touched on that when she was here earlier tonight. We do have 2.4 mills that could be, we could raise to bump the lid bill to 75, and that's as far as you can go without basically a reduction of real benefit. That would raise about $4 million. If you were able to get the lid bill exempted in Hoover, I took a look at what going 5 more mills to 80 would bring. That would bring an additional $8 million, so that would bring us to $12 million. If you could go to 85 mills, that would bring in another $8 million to bring the total to $20 million. So it's cumulative in these numbers. As you can see, our rates are significantly lower than some of our sister cities, Mountain Brook, Vestavia, the ones that always seem to be, you know, people want to talk about their school system, etc. And you can see they're exempted from the lid bill, and they're in the 90s. Of course, Mountain Brook being the highest at 99.1. As you can see, Hoover's at 72.6 on the Jefferson County side of Hoover, and only 66.5 mills on the Shelby County side. And that is mainly a function of a difference in how Shelby County has done their taxes. Shelby County has a smaller amount of property tax for the operation of the county than does Jefferson County. What we'd have to do, obviously, if the school board is going to, you know, raise the tax for school purposes, they would have a resolution from their board to you. Then our council would have to either do an ordinance or a resolution to ask the legislature for permission to have an election. Generally, they don't stand in the way of an election, especially one that small. And once the legislature approves the city having an election, then we'd go through the ballot process and timing, et cetera, and have an election. And the people of Hoover would vote on yes or no on whether or not they want to raise the tax. This is a little more complicated and time consuming if you want to try to get past the lid bill, but that's what would happen just to get to the lid bill. Okay. Next one.
Can I ask questions as we go?
Yes, sir.
That's fine. Go right here.
So, Mr. Yeager, just to confirm, this money, 100% of these funds would go to school systems.
If they're the ones that ask for the tax, and the ballot is so written, when they raise their taxes, the original 14 mil and then the 10 mil, Those are city taxes dedicated for school purposes. You know, it's iterated on the ballot, so that's why those taxes go from the tax assessor to us and then to them.
So if I could use a sports analogy, the ball's in the Board of Education's court. If they
Yes,
so wish to go after this revenue for their purposes, then the first move, if you will, is theirs.
yes.
I certainly am in no way speaking on behalf of this council, but I will say, based on conversations that I've had with my colleagues and the known support this council has for the school system, I suspect there would be unanimous consent to allow that to move forward. So, just to clarify, that the ball's in the court of the school system here. If they want to move forward, I think that gain great support.
That's right, and then ultimately it's in the court of the people. They get to decide whether or not they want to pay more taxes.
Can I pose a question? Just educate me quickly on the collected at 11 million comes from.
That's what the city's portion was.
What percentage? I know they received several different mills from Jefferson County, 24 mills. How's that broken down from, what does the 11 million represent?
That's the 6.5 mills that the city
Okay.
collected, and from that I extrapolated
Gotcha.
what should come in if it was raised.
Right, and that's not including other, and lastly, you're saying the 2.4 additional is an easier process. However, anything above that will be a little bit more rigorous. But Ben, do you know the process on that, especially with us being in two different counties? How does that,
It will
what's
take,
the possibility of something like that happening to go even above the 75 mils?
well, once again, you have to get legislative approval to have a local amendment to the state constitution, which would take a vote in all of, the way I understand the law, it would take a vote of the entire Jefferson County and all of Shelby County. Everybody that's in those two counties would get a vote on whether or not we can be exempted from the lid bill.
So, okay, so every non-Hoover citizen will be able to vote in Shelby, Jefferson County,
The way I
determine
understand,
if a Hoover is allowed.
that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Much like the old statewide amendment, the entire state got to vote on things in the past that might affect one city. Our state constitution, and I don't know how many amendments we have now, but I know this one, the lid bill is 373, so, and that was done in 1978, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Yeager, how much would the cost be to each resident per $100,000 in value?
$24.
$24 per 100,000? Any other questions on ad valorem? All right, sir.
Okay. The next item is residential rental tax. And this is currently a 1% tax that we have for apartments and residences, homes in the city that have renters in them. Revenue Department tries to do a good job of collecting on those houses where people are renting out their, or leasing out their home, and that's what this tax is, 1% tax. It raised right at $1 million in 2017, so if we double the 1% to 2%, we'd get another $1 million. That is done by local ordinance, so it doesn't take a vote of anything other than the council.
Any questions?
Mr. President, the ones that don't have, they just don't charge it?
That's right.
Assess amount?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
And that's locally, there are other cities
Not that we've been able to find, no, sir.
that has a rental tax. Auburn has 1.5%.
Well, but they're not on our list. I only tried to deal with
Local.
local, cities near us. The next item is lodging tax. We currently have a 3% lodging tax that brings in right at $2 million. If we doubled it, would bring in another $2 million in round numbers. As you can see from the list, we're currently at 3% on both the Shelby and Jefferson County side of Hoover. And you can see that only Mountain Brook is at below 6%, besides us. So doubling that would put us right in line with virtually everybody around us.
Does the county just go up on the county lodging tax?
I don't know. So once again, this one too can be initiated by local ordinance.
Questions?
I'm just offering, put that in perspective, it's about $5,000 a day. It's out there.
The next item is garbage fee. We currently do not charge for garbage. If we did, it could raise $7.4 million, and that would be roughly $23.72 a month for Hoover residents. Only our neighbors at Pelham and Alabaster are currently charging for garbage. So, as you can see, Pelham, $12.40 a month. Alabaster, $15.20. They both have additional charges. This is the base rate. If you have more cans and what have you, but this is 1 day a week pickup.
You figured it on two. $23 a basic two.
Continuing with what we've got. Yes, sir. And once again, local ordinance that start collecting garbage fee.
One reason that, the largest reason that this is something that I might pursue is because that's a known entity. It has a finite cap as to how much a resident's going to pay to where a 1 cent tax or other forms of tax are going to infinite. Whatever they pay, I mean, whatever they spend, they're gonna be incurred that other penny. Where this is finite number.
Not really. I mean, it can be. I mean, you could cap it at $23 and 72 cents a month, but our contract with our provider has CPI in it. So
$23.72 per month. Last summer, I was given a lot different from that.
well, this was just around, I took the 7.4 million. We've got roughly 26,000 accounts. It's just round number type.
Mr. President, do you think your number maybe had like a collection in it or like brush collection?
I don't know, at one point, I had a conversation, and I think, at that time, I think some of us, because I thought that it brought in about 7.6. But I'm there about 21,000 homes that receive garbage service.
It's closer to the 26,000.
26,000. So, I'm just trying to make myself happy here. Y'all will continue.
Mr. President, do you know if, say, with the other ones that charge, they have a separate fee for, say, pick up a brush or debris or,
I don't know. That's a good point too, because our 7.4 million includes all the, the leaf and debris pickup, that's built into this. Okay, the next item is an occupational license. Our estimate is that adding 1% in the way of an occupational license fee would bring in somewhere between $16 and $20 million a year. We currently don't have definitive data that we can tell you exactly what it will bring in, but that is our best guess today. Once again, only Birmingham and Bessemer and the surrounding areas have that tax. It too can be added on with an ordinance. next one, sales and use tax. We collected a little over $71 million in sales and use tax in 2017. That's a 3% tax, so if we went to 4, that additional 1 cent would bring in round numbers, $20 million. And you can see that most of our surrounding cities are at that 4% number. Once again, only Mountain Brook is below it. And it too can be initiated by the passage of the local ordinance. Questions? The next page is just a summary of all those items. You can have it in one little spot. And that is the buffet.
Couple of questions out there. And really, it's not going to help the city in the grand scheme of things, but whether or not this is the appropriate time to look at the stormwater fee issue of taking it from $5 to the state limit of $10. It only brings in, I believe, $98,000 a year, give or take.
I think it's about 110 now.
Right now, general fund has to supplement the stormwater program. Perhaps they have some money left over. Still need to supplement.
I think if you doubled it, it would probably, depending, and that's really more for the engineering department to say, but depending on the needs, I would think it would cover the cost. One of the things that's a disparity right now is that we only collect that on the Jefferson County side. They're in the stormwater fee in Shelby County that we collect.
Okay. At what point, and tonight might not be the right time, I know you and I have spoken ever so lightly about sewer systems.
That's in here. That's the next slide.
Okay.
It's just a thumbnail of some of the things regarding the sewer system. We've got 2 plants, one in Inverness, one in Riverside. We've got about 4,500 residential customers and 200 commercial customers. We hadn't had a rate increase in 14 years. Regulations have increased the cost significantly over the years, as has regular inflation and CPIs. Based on information provided by our utility consultant, we're approximately $2.4 million underwater in the annual operation of the sewer system. Between operations and cash flow needs for capital over the next 5 years, it would need a minimum of this $2.4 million just to get back to even. Sewer currently has just a little bit under $30 million in debt, counting principal and interest. And before anything would be done, there would be multiple public meetings for input from all the citizens too. And any questions about that?
Mr. President, I have a few questions about that. So you're gonna have the public meetings in June and July. And then at that point in time, will you bring forward the resolution of what you need to do, or are we talking about, because when you get to July, you're talking about, you're probably gonna have to write in some funding for the next year. Because in August, you're gonna be putting that together. And I remember we looked at a presentation early on in this quadrennium about the possibility of having about $7.5 million for the capital expenditures going into that as well. And I think that was 2020 is what we looked at that rate in regulation. So I just kind of wonder where we're going to be in July.
project, Mr. President, we have I think it's closer to 8 million over the next 5 years. And this is not expansion or new stuff. This is capital repair work, just kind of maintenance work that needs to be done. The thought process is to get in front of the people in River Chase and Inverness who are the ratepayers on this system and present them with the reality as we all understand it, and then some options. And then probably, I think we said about 5 different options. There are some additional research that needs to take place, specifically on the River Chase PUD from the early 1970s. We've been told that there's some language in there that might impinge upon what the city can do with the River Chase system. So there's a lot of conversation that needs to be held, but the mayor's desire was to first and foremost go to those communities and have dialogue openly with folks who are going to be directly affected by this. And then we would know what at least what the thought process was of the people that use these systems, and we could craft something to bring back to the council accordingly. Jagger, would the 2.4 million fund the capital repair?
Yes. According to the report provided by our consultant.
It would take care of capital needs as well as the deficit operating costs. Right. Any questions for Mr. Jagger or Mr. Wright? All right.
And there's one more slide, and this is just to refresh everybody's memory about where we are with our general fund obligations of the city. Our 2010 bond issue pays off at the end of 9/30/22. And those payments are roughly $9 million a year. And then we have the 2016 issue, and all that money has been used to build our sports park out by the Met, the Finley Center, and the fields that are under construction now. We're only paying interest on that debt until the bonds in 2010 pay off, and then principal and interest kick in, so that 2.7 million a year that we're paying right now in interest only will jump up to about 6.5 million through 2036.
Any other questions?
Mr. President,
I was hoping, are you gonna?
do you mind? I think it's no secret, I've been really focused on the expense side of this equation, far more than creating an appetite for the revenue side of this equation. I think the mayor said it best, that the solution is going to come from a toolbox, and there's many tools in there. And we as a council and we as a mayor are beginning the discussions of what tools we're going to grab. So what I want to share with my colleagues, and I know some of you have had the opportunity to be in meetings with a municipal banker over the last week or so, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because it can get bogged down in the details, but once you get a copy, I want to share with you what it is we're looking at. This particular banker shared with me an idea that would allow us to restructure our debt, the 2010 and the 2016 issues, to create some positive cash flow between now and 2022. But you'll see, after you have opportunity to study it, that what we're in essence doing is flipping what Mr. Yeager just reviewed. So whereas the chart you're looking at on the screen, our debt goes down significantly from, our debt payments go down from 11.788 million to 6.4. What this proposal would do, if we want to consider it, would levelize that, giving us positive cash flow between now and 2023 to the tune of $3 million a year back in our general fund if we lower our debt payments. Conversely, it would increase our debt payments above what we're scheduled to pay today. Whereas 6.487 is what we're scheduled to go down to in 2023. According to this schedule, it would go up to 11.3 million, which is really what we're paying today. So in essence, you're levelizing your debt payments over the life of the bond issues. A couple more things I want to point out is this, I'm just speaking on your sheet, proposed scenario 1. It removes 5 years off the life of the issues. And over the light of the issues, it reduces the overall cost to the city by $1.511 million. So it's just a tool in that toolbox. Again, if there is some interest from the council, I would be delighted to have a finance committee meeting where we could discuss this in more detail and invite a banker, Mr. Yeager, Dr. Lopez, to come in and talk in more detail about that and answer any questions you may have. But, Mr. President, I just wanted to offer this just as an introductory sheet, and I would ask my colleagues to study it and ask me any questions you have, and certainly if there's interest, we can move forward with the finance committee.
Mr. President, is there some more information to go with this about the interest rate that we would get on this refinance and then what it would do to our bond rate?
Well, interest rates, as you well know, we have a conversation today about it, tomorrow's gonna be a different conversation, so that's kind of always hard to pinpoint. Bond ratings, another good question. I think a municipal banker, certainly Mr. Yeager and Dr. Lopez are incredibly well versed in how those bond ratings work. So those are the kind of conversations I think Mr. Posey would be well intended for a finance committee.
Mr. President, to the point about the interest rate, that's one of the more, we tend to equate bonds with commercial or consumer borrowing, you know. Bonds are really complicated, and there's a lot more to them, even bond experts, you know, tend to focus on one certain particular types of bond. An interest rate on a bond can really be complicated by fee structures, different coupon fees, all these back-end fees, front-end fees, the maintenance fees, all these other things. So I think that's what I do think it'd be good to have a meeting so they can tell us about how those fees are affecting us now with our current bonds, because the average citizen is going to look at this and see it like a regular consumer borrowing, and it's really not like that at all. And I think looking through those details would be important to really understand what this growth, our proposal like this would be.
These are the ones that myself and some of the staff members recognize, but I'm not going to think or say that this is all inclusive. So, any colleagues have any other recommendations that they would like to bring up, talk about? Now's a good time. If not now, then perhaps at the next meeting or the next finance. Everybody have any additional questions? Comments? Very good. We will move to item 16, payment of the bills, Mr. Lytle.
Mr. Smith, I have reviewed the bills, and I would move they be paid in full as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 17, comments and questions. Mr. Mayor, do you have any numbers yet on how well attended the golf tournament was?
They have not released that yet.
Okay.
Should have it
Soon.
very soon.
We also have a little baseball coming this week. Fanfare.
We're really kicking up this year, maybe even better.
Fanfare. It's gonna be an exciting week. Starts tomorrow. I think we've got a good show. Look forward to seeing everybody.
I was up there this morning and RV park is filling up fast. Filling up fast. Any other comments or questions from the council?
Mr. President, one quick question, if I may, for Ms. Rice. At the next meeting, me and Councilman Posey met over the leaky roof and reducing some of the expenditures on municipal facilities, so we can redirect some of that money to the training facility and all that stuff. Can we do we have enough for an update now? It kind of puts you on the spot here. I know that we had worked on a plan to reduce that, but still maintain fixing the roof and a couple other public-facing items on the capital improvement.
Yes, sir. We've gotten some preliminary numbers back from the architect, and I'm not gonna try to quote them because I'll mess them up, but we do have some information. But we can bring that in the form of an update. We're thinking about numbers associated with.
The things we narrowed it down to that were essential,
Yes.
if we could kind of have some numbers on that and kind of have an update on that. So.
Absolutely.
Mr. President, I'd like to commend you and Mrs. Smith for dinner. That's very kind.
It wasn't pizza, but it was food. And if there's any left, we'll figure out something to do with it, but you know, take it home, get a nice snack. Oh, I'd guess 9:30, we're doing pretty good. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to talk about this evening? Do you have anything on the finances you'd like to bring up this evening? Not tonight, okay. Any comments or questions from the audience? The vast of you that are still here. Come on down, sir.
Burned it.
Had a couple of things ran across my mind during the meeting. One,
We get your name and address.
Pete Mosley, 3415 Heaven Lane.
Been long, been long.
Yeah, where I live.
Yeah.
But I found it odd that y'all have been through apparently months and months and months of negotiation on these small cell sites. And these folks show up at the first reading and then start demanding changes of stuff they've already helped negotiate. I thought that was unusual. You know, maybe I just don't understand the business. But anyway, and the other thing, Mr. Shaw, on these, the Tattersall, no, the one where they're having the
International Park.
44, yeah. You mentioned something about 44 front doors. How is the impact on those units gonna be like the homes and, you know, there was some quite extensive discussion about the front door fees for residential. Would those affect that same thing?
Sir, I think that's part of the question is, I mean, in a development like this, if we had it in the middle of an urban environment, the impact would be different. You're walking, you have mass transit, you have other things. From our perspective, they still have cars, they still have, you know, all the normal, that's part of the question, I think, the policy we have to decide. And that's why I think the question is very important for this particular style of development, because it is different and innovative and lots of different things, but at the end of the day, we still have to evaluate the impact. So that's why I equated the front doors, because in our situation, they are.
And that was my question, you know, will they be charged like residential, you know, individual homes or, and that's just something, you know, I was asking about. And then the third thing is during this presentation on fees and all that kind of stuff, the 2.3 or $4 million shortfall in the revenues for the sewer plants, River Chase and Inverness. How's that being covered right now? If those are the only folks that are using it, is the rest of the city of Hoover having to pay them too?
Yes, sir, it's being supported by the general fund.
Right.
No?
No, it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Right now, they still have some operational cash.
They have reserves.
They have cash. They lose cash every year, and they have deferred doing these capital items because we don't have the money to do them.
But if something is not done soon, the rest of us are gonna have to pick up that cost because it will come out of the general fund. Is that not correct? When they run out of reserves? I mean, you can't just shut the plants down. So something has to be done, but it ought not to be on the backs of the entire city of Hoover. If, you know, we're already paying our sewer fees. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Jagger, if you could help me update my thoughts. I know a lot of the dollar value is lost through depreciation, correct? So the general fund is not supporting the sewer system in any way, correct?
No, sir.
It's meeting its operational needs.
The one thing we do is their accounting for them. But as far as us putting money into the sewer system, no, sir, the city has not put any money in the sewer system since I've been here.
Okay.
But we will have to.
Stand corrected.
Something's gonna have to be done.
Right, and so I guess that's it, we need to understand, there's something accruing, some expense, something, and then if we, I assume that what the money, is that coming from a borrowing, is that what that 2010 money is being augmented in any way, or
No.
it's all depreciated?
Yeah, most of the financial statement loss is depreciation, but, financial statement loss doesn't take into account the principal. It does take into account the interest, so you gotta start looking, effectively what we have in that $2.4 million is operational loss and deferred maintenance. It has not been done.
it's stacking up somewhere, and we're gonna have to pay for it.
Mr. President, one quick question. Tim or Ron, perhaps you can answer this. The CIP for the sewer plant, will that be predicated on the fact that it'll be mandated to do certain things per federal laws and EPA standards and things of that nature? So I guess that's what I'm saying. From a city standpoint, we can defer some capital improvement for our city with no regulations, but is there regulation requirements for those plants that they must be done if they're not meeting certain values? So I don't know which capital improvement plans we have to do by regulations alone.
Well, it's not necessarily laid out that way, Mr. Murphy. It's more, we have a permit and we have certain limits that we have to comply with. And if we don't comply with those limits, then ADM will come in.
Right.
And EPA behind them.
With fines and then give you a consent decree to get them mandated to get done.
So if we don't do the capital improvements necessary to continue to clean the water to those limits, then we're in trouble.
Okay.
Anything else from the audience? Anything else from the council? Oh, yes, sir.
Just a comment.
Just give us your name and address.
My name is Bill Richardson, 1853 T.S.R. Drive. And I just wanted to kind of reinforce the comment, I guess, made by Mr. Michael Shaw about the proposed changing of a planned office type to a planned commercial thing with residences or apartments on top of it. And I'd say that most of the time, and I'm just an ordinary citizen, you would have to listen very closely to understand that. It's not clearly stated, and the council would be well advised to, do a lot extra publication, communication for approval or a change at that time, just to keep the general population, people like myself, happy, and that you know what you're doing and why it's occurring in a certain way. Listening to the rationale of residences above a little commercial thing, all I'm seeing is, well, maybe it doesn't die on the commercial side, and then there's another ordinance that said, let's go back down to the first floor and change it into more residences and stuff like that, so you get into those types of situations. And then that type of structure fits very well in the downtown area. I'm not so sure that it's sort of established a positive pattern in a sort of remote location.
Just so you know, the reserve had a mixed-use development to start with, only they were selling all the living units instead of renting. I don't know if they may have been more successful had they rented those units instead of trying to sell them. But anything else? Anybody? Hearing none? We're adjourned. Take food home.
Yes.